Hi everyone, today we're going to be talking about the 66 student council that Miyuki was a part of during his first year. Aside from Miyuki, the student council consisted of the nameless student council president, Ryuju, Momo, and 3 other unnamed members. We'll be going over all of them and the scandal that broke the student council apart. This video is going to be based on a Reddit post that I made about a year and a half ago. I'll leave a link to it in the description. I will cover parts of the manga for Kaguya that the anime hasn't adapted yet, but these are really minor spoilers and are mostly from flashbacks. So even if you're an anime only, I would still encourage you to watch this video. As I was saying earlier, a certain incident occurred between the 66 student council. We don't know what it was specifically because of how little we've seen of Miyuki's freshman year. However, I think we have enough pieces to figure out what happened. The theory that I have is that Ryuju Momo was framed for stealing from the student treasury. Miyuki was able to find the real culprit, and in the end, the former president took responsibility for the crime. This might not make a lot of sense right now, so let me explain how I got to this conclusion. Let's start with Ryuju Momo, who is the key to this theory. In her conversation with Tsubame, Momo admitted that she would have dropped out of high school if it wasn't for Tsubame's social support. From this, we can infer that Momo was bullied in the past. However, when Miyuki first met Momo, she showed no sign of wanting to drop out. So the bullying must have happened at some point after Miyuki joined the student council in April. So what caused Momo to be bullied? Ryuju Momo is the daughter of a Yakuza boss. She was also the treasurer of the 66 student council. So if any money from the student treasury goes missing, she would be the primary suspect because of her Yakuza background. At some point though, Miyuki was able to prove Momo's innocence. We can assume this because Momo owes Miyuki a debt. To repay Miyuki, Momo has done various favors for him, like helping him build the heart balloon bomb and providing him with Yakuza henchmen to guard the student council room. This event didn't leave Miyuki unscathed. When Miyuki first introduced himself to Kaguya, his face was covered in bruises and band-aids. Being a student who lived in poverty, Miyuki would also be a suspect of this treasury theft. So, who attacked Miyuki? According to Miyuki himself, he wasn't known around the school until he took first place in the final exams. So it was probably someone from the student council because the regular students didn't know him well enough to even accuse him. I think the likely answer is that Momo blamed Miyuki for the treasury theft and sent her Yakuza underlings after him, which is part of why she feels so obligated to repay Miyuki in the present day. During the General Student Assembly in July, Miyuki did something outrageous. This event was hinted at since the beginning of the series and was probably the climax of the scandal. At the student assembly, Miyuki was nominated to run for president, with Kaguya as his vice president as a punishment for losing to him in the final exams. It was probably here that Miyuki proved Momo's innocence, but I'll get to that later. Whatever he did, Miyuki alienated the third-year members of his student council. The 67th Student Council, which was the one in the beginning of the series with Miyuki, Kaguya, Fujiwara, and Ishigami, actually had 2 more members. They were the third-year auditor and the general affairs officer. The 2 third years were most likely also members of the 66 Student Council. But because of what happened at the General Student Assembly, those 2 became upset at Miyuki and went out of their way to avoid him. So much that they were never introduced as characters. So what about the former student council president? Did he steal the money? During the third-year graduations, we see the previous president sneaking into the student council room. He claims that he isn't very popular and would ruin the mood for everyone else, but that doesn't match up with what we know about him. Despite looking very sketchy, the former president is kind and caring. He went out of his way to take Miyuki under his wing and made the student council room open to every Shuching Academy student so that he can listen to their problems. On top of that, from the little of what we saw of him interacting with other students, he seems to be well liked and admired. Although he is now ostracized by the rest of the school, the previous president is still respected by his former student council. They still referred to him as president and threw him a surprise farewell party in the student council room. From this we can infer a couple of things. A. The former president publicly took the blame for the treasury theft, which led to his unpopularity. At least he partially took responsibility since he wasn't expelled. And B. The treasury theft wasn't actually his fault, otherwise he wouldn't be as cherished by his former student council members. So who actually committed the treasury theft? It's the Phantom 6 member of the 66 Student Council. During the former president's graduation party, only 5 members of the student council were present, including Miyuki and Momo. However, a student council at Shuching Academy has 6 positions available: the president, the vice president, the secretary, the treasurer, the auditor, and the general affairs officer. So the last member of the 66 student council was either not welcomed or too ashamed to show up. It's possible that the 66 student council never had a 6th member to begin with, like how the current student council only has 5 members, but I find that unlikely with how aggressive the former president was at recruiting members. So why did the former president take responsibility for the stolen money? It's possible that the culprit had a good reason for taking the money. Maybe they had a sick or dying family member that needed medical funds, or their family business was going under. Who knows? Regardless, the former president was sympathetic towards the culprit and threw himself under the bus. Finally, how did the president manage to shift the blame onto himself? I think this was the incident at the student assembly. Miyuki and the former president worked together to make it so that the president appeared to be responsible for the missing funds in front of the entire student population. However, the other 2 student council members were against this decision and became upset with Miyuki, refusing to even be in the same room as him throughout the rest of her time in high school, despite initially agreeing to be a member of his student council. So to summarize my theory of the 66 student council again, a student council member stole from the student treasury and framed Ryuju Momo for it. Momo was bullied as a result, but eventually Miyuki was able to find the real culprit. However, the former president decided to sacrifice his reputation and honor to protect the culprit, and Miyuki helped him do that at the student assembly. There were a lot of assumptions in this theory. I hope that Aka reveals what happened in Miyuki's first year before the manga ends, and I'm excited to see how much of it I got right. Let me know what you guys think about this theory in the comments.